Star Wars has always been a franchise about heroes, choices, and more importantly, failure. But when we look at The Empire Strikes Back, one of the best Star Wars movies ever made, one of the best films ever made, it's a masterpiece that turned failure into one of the most powerful narrative tools in film history. And then we have The Last Jedi, a film that tried to tackle similar themes but ended up embarrassing itself. And in this video, we'll break down exactly why The Empire Strikes Back handled the theme of failure so perfectly and why The Last Jedi didn't. In The Empire Strikes Back, Luke Skywalker's character arc is crafted through his failures. At the start of the film, he's a hopeful hero, but his decision to leave training with Yoda to rescue Han and Leia shows how impatient and impulsive he is. When Obi-Wan warns him, if you choose to face Vader, you'll do it alone, it sets the stage for a crucial lesson. This decision comes with real and tangible consequences. His emotional drive leads him to face Vader, and he's completely unprepared. In their battle, Luke is obviously defeated, he loses his hand, and he discovers that the most feared man in the galaxy is his father. This is a pivotal moment in the story. It's a brutal lesson for Luke, forcing him to confront his impulsiveness and learn the value of patience and self-control. He's physically and emotionally scarred by this failure, and it shapes his journey going forward. Now compare this to The Last Jedi, where Luke's failure is where he momentarily considers killing Ben Solo in his sleep. This one instance of fear leads Luke to abandon everything he stood for. This drastic shift isn't earned, and it's abrupt, and it's so obviously out of character. Luke Skywalker, the guy who fought so hard to redeem Darth Vader, suddenly just wouldn't give up after one moment of weakness. There's no nuance or understanding of his emotional state, and this complete character assassination is pathetic storytelling because it undermines completely the core of who Luke is. In The Empire Strikes Back, the theme of failure is clear and consistent throughout the film. Every character is faced with their own version of failure. The rebels are forced to flee from Hoth, Han and Leia are endlessly pursued and betrayed by Lando, and Luke's impulsiveness leads to the revelation that he's the son of Darth Vader. Every single failure ties back to the larger narrative of struggle against overwhelming odds. The film builds tension and raises the stakes through these losses, which makes the ultimate victory in Return of the Jedi that much more satisfying. The characters fail, but those failures contribute directly to their growth and the plot's momentum. Compare this with The Last Jedi, which throws around the idea that failure is the best teacher but does absolutely nothing with it. Poe's mutiny against Holdo is supposed to teach him a lesson about leadership, but the resolution is so poorly handled. He doesn't face any real consequences for endangering the resistance. Even worse is Finn and Rose's pointless mission to Canto Bight, which concludes in a massive failure, and yet nothing changes because of it. Their failure adds absolutely nothing to the story. The mission itself is so disconnected from the main plot that it feels like filler. Their failure is so hollow because it has no bearing on the overall narrative. This is truly tragic storytelling because failure should have real stakes and consequences, pushing characters to grow and evolve. But The Last Jedi completely fails to deliver any of that payoff. Now let's talk about emotional payoffs. Empire Strikes Back builds up to one of the most iconic moments in movie history, which is of course Darth Vader's reveal that he's Luke's father. But this isn't just shocking for the sake of it, it's a moment that completely reshapes Luke's entire understanding of himself. Also, everything that he's fought for suddenly becomes a question mark to him. The emotional weight of that moment is massive because it's been built up carefully throughout the entire movie. Luke's battle with Vader isn't just physical, it's an emotional confrontation, and the payoff is of course legendary. Now The Last Jedi tries to pull off a big emotional reveal that Rey's parents were nobodies, but it falls completely on its face. It's because this movie and the previous movie spent so much time building up this mystery about who her parents were, only to throw it away in the most anticlimactic way possible. There's no emotional impact because there's no setup for it. Luke's death is also another big swing and a big miss. His force projection at the Battle of Crate should have been this epic moment, but it's handled so sloppily that when he dies it just feels like, okay. Whatever. Emotional payoffs need to feel earned, and none of them did in The Last Jedi. At the end of the day, The Empire Strikes Back knows how to tell a story about failure that matters. It pushes the characters to their limits, makes them confront their own weaknesses, and sets the stage for real growth. The Last Jedi tries to play in the same sandbox, but it doesn't understand the rules. It throws around the theme of failure like a cheap gimmick, but it never gives it any real weight or consequence. That's the difference between a masterclass in storytelling and a confused, bloated mess of a film. The Empire Strikes Back is the gold standard for how to make failure meaningful, and while The Last Jedi, it's just a failure in filmmaking, and that's the blunt truth of it.